What's up, Christ-Centered Mental Health community? This is me, David Lee Chu Sarche. I represent Christ-Centered Mental Health, a ministry where I talk about mental health awareness from a Christian perspective in order to give you real hope in Jesus' name to the glory of God the Father. Before we get started on this episode of Real Life with Schizophrenia, I want to give you guys an announcement for those of you that are new to the channel. Please check out the Christ-Centered Mental Health Ministry website. It's www.christcenteredmentalhealth.net. There you can see our statement of faith. You can have access to the On Faith Mental Health blog. You can find out how to support the ministry through Patreon, Venmo, or Cash App. You can find out how to contact me or someone on the team for 24-hour peer support. Or you can check out the Christ-Centered Mental Health Ministry store too. As I said, this is mine and Joe's bi-weekly podcast called Real Life with Schizophrenia. For this week's episode, we might get a little controversial because we're going to be talking about gender dysphoria and paranoid personality disorder. So if you're easily triggered, maybe you shouldn't watch this episode. But for those of you that aren't easily triggered, keep watching because this is going to be a really good show. How you doing today, Joseph?
I'm pretty good.
That's good.
Yep.
That's good. So before I go into the DSM-5 can you explain what you think paranoid personality disorder is?
Well, it's not a chemical imbalance like schizophrenia, but it's similar to where you suspect everybody's out to get you. You don't trust anybody. Any conversation you have, you kind of think that they're trying to screw you over some way, and you just pretty much live in a constant state of paranoia, obviously. Yeah. And so, that's just pretty much how it is, with people with this particular personality.
Yeah, and I like what you say. It's not a chemical imbalance. It's a personality flaw. So it's not something that can be treated with medication. Someone who deals with paranoid personality disorder needs to see a therapist, a licensed therapist.
Right.
But yeah, or they could go see a biblical counselor, which, by the way, I'm working towards becoming a biblical counselor. So yeah, if you're a believer, please keep me in prayer about that.
Amen.
Okay, so I'm gonna go into the DSM-5. For those of you that are not aware of the DSM-5, it's called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It pretty much is like the Bible for psychiatrists and psychologists. That this is where they determine it's a criteria for any mental illness out there. Which personality disorders are considered mental illnesses. That's why paranoid personality disorder is listed in this book. But yeah, so it says for the paranoid personality disorder, it says a pervasive distrust and suspiciousness of others such that their motives are interpreted as malevolent beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts as indicated by 4 or more of the following. So in order for you to be diagnosed with paranoid personality disorder, you must meet at least 4 of these criteria. And it's usually, like I said, it usually manifests in early adulthood. And so there's 7 of these criteria, but in order to be diagnosed with this disorder, you have to meet at least 4 of them. The first one is suspects without sufficient basis that others are exploiting, harming, or deceiving him or her. So basically, someone with paranoid personality disorder is going to suspect that someone is trying, without they don't have any evidence of this, but they suspect that someone's trying to harm them or trying to exploit them or abuse them. But the key word there is they have no sufficient basis for believing that,
Right.
which I could kind of relate to that because when I get manic, sometimes I get very paranoid and I think people are out to get me.
Hmm. Yeah. When I get depressed, I tend to get paranoid, and I think people are gonna kill me and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Number two is preoccupied with unjustified doubts about the loyalty or trustworthiness of friends or associates. Basically, someone with paranoid personality disorder has a hard time trusting their friends or their associates because they think their friends are fake friends and that they're going to hurt them. Like,
Right.
I can't really relate to that because I'm pretty, like the friends that I have, I don't really doubt that they're fake towards me.
Yeah. Um, it depends on the friend on me because there's some friends like I tend to like give people the benefit of the doubt, and then I ended up having the friendship ending. So I'm kind of
Yeah,
weary about, but like once I get to know them and now that I found a new church and I'm trying to get more Christian friends because secular people tend to gravitate towards me, and sometimes it's not always a good thing. So
yeah, I can relate to you because I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt too. But what I was saying, like when I actually have a true friendship with someone, I don't worry about if they're going to betray me or anything because I feel like I know them well enough to know that they're not going to harm me.
right.
Number three is reluctant to confide in others because of unwarranted fear that the information will be used maliciously against him or her. So basically, a person with paranoid personality disorder is afraid to tell someone details about them because they're afraid that person is going to use that detail against them. Which I can relate to that because sometimes I do worry about if I typically express myself too much, and sometimes I do worry about if I tell someone the wrong thing that they're going to use that information against me somehow.
Yeah, kind of reminds me. There was a time where I was in a suicidal unit, and I was suicidal, but I didn't really tell them the reason why. And eventually I got over it, but I didn't really discuss with them the reason why it was, and it was like kind of a personal reason,
Yeah,
and I just didn't solve the issue, and it kind of muddied the waters even further when I got out.
yeah, that
But that
makes
was all meant to be, anyways.
Yeah. Actually, that reminds. I remember one time when I was in juvenile detention, there was a kid that I was roommates with, and like he disclosed to me that he was a sex offender, and he asked me not to tell anyone. So I was like, okay, I promise I won't tell anyone. Well, he made me promise not to tell anyone before he disclosed to me that he was a sex offender,
Right.
and so I told him, oh, don't worry, I won't say anything. But then shortly after that, he became an a hole towards me and started like trash talking me, putting me down and stuff, and I didn't say and then one day probably like 3 or 4 months later of him like putting me down and trash talking me all the time. I know one day like we were in the medical building and I said, hey, I called him by his name. And I said, hey, do you remember that secret you disclosed to me like 4 or 5 months ago? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I could tell he was afraid I was gonna rat him out. But I was like, well, I just want you to know that I still haven't told anyone. I've been keeping your secret, even though you've been treating me like crap. And after he said thank you, I appreciate it. And after that day, he became nicer to me again.
That kind of reminds me of the scripture where when your enemy has hot coals on his head, pour water on it to cool off the situation.
No,
Careful.
yeah, it says, when your enemy is hungry, give him something to eat. When your enemy is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you be pouring hot coals on his head.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I really butchered that. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah. Um. Okay. So the next one is number four. Reads hidden, demeaning, or threatening meanings into benign remarks or events. So basically, someone with paranoid personality disorder is going to see the worst. Is going to see the worst in what someone says or an event that happens. They're going to always see the worst in it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't
like
really,
I
I can't really relate to that because I tend to be a typical optimistic type of guy. Like I always think of the bright side of things, so I don't really relate. Like I've been told by friends of mine that I'm like the guy that's chasing a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
well, for a Christian, I can be quite pessimistic and nihilistic myself.
Yeah.
Like I tell people this sometimes, like I've met a lot of people in the world, and I can understand why God flooded it the first time. Like so,
Yeah.
so I tend to do look at like I try to look at the good side of people, but I try to stay away from people as much as I can
Yeah.
because I don't know. I've just been through so much. I just want to keep my circle real tight, and maybe I'll still continue my witnessing and all, but I just want
Yeah.
to just take it easy a little bit.
Yeah. No, I get it. So then number five, it says persistently bears grudges. For example, is unforgiving of insults, injuries, or slights. That right there, when I was younger, I used to be unforgiving when people would hurt me. But nowadays, I don't really hold grudges against people. Like if someone hurts me, but then later on they apologize, I forgive them. Like I remember I had an incident back when I was living in California where this guy like thought I was talking about him behind his back, and like he pretty much sucker punched me and knocked me out. But then he ran away before I woke up, and then like I went back to my stepdad's apartment, and like, I was really mad at the time, and I was waiting for him to come by so I could actually fight him. But then, like when he came back, he came back one night, and I was ready. I was ready for him this time. But then he apologized to me. He said, "Yeah, I just realized you weren't talking about me, and I wanted to say sorry about what I did to you." And
Right?
right then and there, right when he said he was sorry about hurting me, I forgave him. I forgave him right away.
Should have messed them up, man. No, I was kidding.
No, I'm a,
Yeah,
I'm a very forgiving man. Like
there you
I
go.
don't
Good.
hold grudges against people.
That's a good thing. Yeah, like uh, an apology with me goes a long way if it's genuine and it's repentive. Saying you're sorry and keep doing the same thing over and over again is kind of worthless. But when you're sorry and you stop doing the thing that annoys the other person and you really feel bad about it and feel guilty and you want to stop, that goes a long
Exactly.
way with me because not every person is capable of that. And so
Yeah.
when someone actually feels bad when they do you wrong and like they apologize for it, then everything
Yeah.
is given.
Exactly. That's how I am. As long as you're willing to acknowledge you did wrong and you apologize to me, I'm not gonna hold a grudge against you.
Yeah.
So then number six is perceives attacks on his or her character or reputation that are not apparent in others and is quick to act angrily or to counterattack. So basically, someone with paranoid personality disorder is going to be quick to assume that someone's trying to attack or demean their character, and so they're on the defensive to try and defend themselves against this attack. Uh, I'm not a very vindictive type of man. I don't try and if someone tries to demean my character, I firmly believe that the truth will come out, and I let the truth fight my battles. Like I don't like I won't I'm not gonna like try and like destroy someone else's character because I think they're trying to destroy my character. I just if someone accuses me of something, I let the truth come out on its own.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I had something in my mind and it kind of just slipped out of there. I don't know. Sorry.
It's that ADD,
Yeah,
bro.
among other things. Yeah, I got quite the cocktail of disorder. I think actually I was misdiagnosed a little bit. I think I like doing this show. I think I relate to a lot of the things we talked about, and I think there's some anxiety issues with me, and also I don't know, when we did antisocial personality disorder, when I was talking about like being a rebel and like and going against the grain of society, I was like, oh, I can relate to that too, definitely. But at the
Yeah,
same time, I do have remorse, and I
yeah,
don't like to see people, hurt and stuff. So I guess I'm a little
yeah,
fucked up. But so, at the same time, like I just realized that like a lot of these different what's that thing where they kind of like disorders kind of like symptoms kind of go inside with each other, and then they
it's called dual diagnosis.
yeah, it's like, well, not a dual diagnosis, but like the symptoms are kind of the same even though they're different disorders, like
Oh, I know. I
you know,
think I know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, I don't remember, but anyways.
And then the final symptom of paranoid person is number 7. It says has recurrent suspicions without justification regarding fidelity of spouse or sexual partner. So basically, someone with paranoid personality disorder is going to have constant suspicions that their spouse is unfaithful to them, even if there's no evidence of it. I definitely don't relate to that because I know for a fact my wife is loyal to me and she's not cheating on me. So that's not even that thought never even crosses my mind, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe in past relationships with my marriage, I don't have to worry about that myself, which is
Well, I
a
will
blessing.
say this. I will say it's like early on in my wife's marriage, because of my separation anxiety disorder, I did have like nightmares of my wife being unfaithful to me or of my wife betraying me. Like I was having those nightmares, but that wasn't because of paranoid. That was because of my separation anxiety. I would wake up and my wife would be right there. Then my separation anxiety would calm down right away as soon as I saw my wife right next to me.
I was thinking a scenario with someone with paranoid personality disorder. Quite might go like after their spouse is impregnated, he might have suspicions like, "Oh, that's not my kid. It doesn't look like me," and I want to get a DNA test. And it's like it's hard to trust someone back, that has such
You know, I
paranoid
just thought of
thoughts.
something. Dale from King of the Hill would probably benefit from having paranoid personality disorder.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
because he was so paranoid about everything else, but he couldn't see that Joseph wasn't his son. So obvious.
exactly. All right, so that's paranoid personality disorder. The next one we're going to cover is gender dysphoria. This is where we're going to get pretty controversial. But Joseph, you want to like explain what you think gender dysphoria is?
Well, it's in the book, right? The DSM-5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely a mental condition. I think some people that on the right side of the political spectrum kind of deny it's even real at all, but it's a real thing. And anybody who has it, I pray for you, and I hope you suffer. But it's basically someone who thinks they're the opposite of gender of what they're born with for whatever reason. It could be caused by trauma or whatever, but
Yeah.
uh, you know, I think it became politicized about 4 years ago, and
Yeah.
it became kind of trendy in some ways. And I think people took advantage of the system at the time and really didn't have gender dysphoria. They just said, like, I might rob a bank, and then if I get caught, I'll just, identify as a female. And like some judges did fall for it, and I thought that was a travesty. But there's no denying that gender dysphoria is a real mental
Well,
condition.
it's kind of interesting. I remember when I was younger and I was going through my anti-Christian phase. Like I thought I was bisexual because well I embraced bisexuality because I was trying to that was my in my mind that was my ultimate rebellion against God and I hated God at the time. So I
Right.
was thinking if I became bisexual then I'll really be pissing God off. And like, I remember once I had a guardian, a GAL, which for those of you that don't know what a GAL is, it stands for guardian ad litem. It's pretty much when you're in foster care, your GAL is pretty much your attorney that they represent you in court. And my I don't know what I was talking to my GAL one time, and she asked me if I thought I was transgender, and I didn't know what that word meant at the time, and she explained it to me. And like I was young, and I feel like she kind of put that in, like she kind of put that thought in my mind, which
Right.
I think is kind of messed up. Like kids should not be asked a question like that because kids are still growing and maturing, and their brains are still developing. So when she put that thought in my mind when I was like 19, like it kind of like made me wonder. I was like, am I transgender? And that was a thought that lingered on in me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it pretty much like gender. From what I understand about gender dysphoria, it's where you think you're the opposite sex, or you think you're trapped. Your sex is trapped in the wrong body. But
Yeah,
like,
and like you're 6 years younger than me, right?
yeah,
Uh, I was born in 1983. They didn't ask us questions like this when we were younger, like in the early 90s and stuff. When I was growing up and stuff, like
yeah,
was not really a thing. I mean, yeah, there was RuPaul, and that's as far as I knew about it back then. So it
yeah.
really got politicalized in recent times.
Well, according to DSM-5, I guess they split up gender. Like, I guess they split it up into two categories. There's gender dysphoria in children and gender dysphoria in adolescents and adults. So I'll go ahead and like go over the children's section first. For children, it says a marked incongruence between one's experience slash expressed gender and assigned gender of at least 6 months duration as manifested by at least six of the following. So basically, a child with gender dysphoria is going to have an impression that they're the opposite sex that doesn't match their assigned gender, and they're going to meet at least six of these criteria for at least 6 months duration of time. So the first symptom is a strong desire to be of the other gender for an insistence that one is the other gender. Wait, a strong desire to be of the other gender or an insistence that one is the other gender or some alternative gender different from one's assigned gender. So basically, a child with gender dysphoria is going to think that they are the opposite gender than what they were born as, like which
Okay.
is like the thing is, like I don't know. I never experienced that as a kid. Yeah, I do remember when I was a small boy, I did like to play house with girls more than anything else. But the thing was, even when I was playing house with my friends, I always wanted to be the husband.
Yeah.
So
Well, okay. Based on that information you told me, um, you like say you're a regular guy. You have a regular job. Say you're a fireman, right?
well, this is in children, so keep
I
that
know,
down.
I know. I'm getting to that. So you're
Okay.
a regular guy, and you have a fireman job, and you're a masculine man. You have a regular wife. She, maybe she's just a regular housewife. And anyways, and the like, say you got a daughter and a son, and the daughter plays with Barbies and stuff like that, and you buy cars and fire trucks and GI Joes for your kid, your son, and it's quite possible, even though you didn't mix them up with politics at an early age, even though you raised them right, it's quite possible that your son can still want to play with Barbies and do stuff with his sister and do that kind of stuff rather than the stuff that it was presented by his father.
Yeah.
Okay.
Writer Mrs. Sarche says saying assigned gender is bunk science and that language needs to be eradicated in all language. I actually agree with that. Like I know I use the word assigned gender, but that's because that's what it says in the DSM-5. But I do agree that that saying should be taken out of language. But for the sake of the DSM-5, I'm just gonna read what it says in the book. Like, so then number two, it says in boys assigned gender a strong preference for cross-dressing or simulating or hold on. In boys assigned gender a strong preference for cross-dressing or simulating female attire. Or in girls assigned gender a strong preference for wearing only typical masculine clothing and a strong insistence to wearing or strong resistance to wearing typical feminine clothing. Like I never when I was a child I never struggled with that. Like I when I was a boy I wore boy clothes and I did know girls that wore boy clothes, but I remember back in my day if a girl wore boy clothes, she was just called a tomboy.
Tomboy, yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
she wasn't called gender
A
dysphoria.
real man or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, um, number three, a strong preference for cross-gender roles in make-believe play or fantasy play. Like I said, so basically, like what this is saying is like a boy or a girl who has gender dysphoria, they're gonna want to play games that are of the opposite sex that they were born as. But like I said, I don't know how that would work with me because when I was a boy, yeah, I liked to play house with my friends that were girls, but I wasn't playing a feminine role when I was playing house with them. I was the husband, the father, so I don't think that really applied to me as a child.
Well, I can kind of relate to that because when I was younger, I didn't really have any male friends until I went to school. And
Yeah,
then but before that, like I didn't have any brothers or sisters, and I had a cousin that was my age and she had girlfriends and like my neighbors were my age and they were girls, so I just kind of did that by default, like played
yeah,
house and stuff like that. I didn't really have any guy
yeah.
friends to play with. This doesn't mean I have to
That
pop off my junk when I turn 18 or something.
that's how I felt too. Because in my neighborhood, the boys in my neighborhood were all significantly younger than me, and the kids that were my age were girls. So I would naturally play games with the girls that were in my
Yeah.
neighborhood too. Um, okay, so number four, a strong preference for the toys, games, or activities stereotypically used or engaged in by the other gender. Okay, that I guess like we were just talking about, basically what this is saying is that a boy or a girl that has gender dysphoria, they're gonna want to play games or play with toys or do activities that are typically stereotypically of the opposite gender. So, for instance, when I was a boy, I didn't want to play sports with the other guys. I much rather sit in my room and read and write, which are reading and writing stereotypically are considered feminine activities because I'll write in my journal and stuff like that. And guys my age were out there playing baseball, football, whatever. Or I I was I wasn't really doing quote unquote masculine things as a boy.
Yeah, well, it was kind of a mixture with me. I did masculine things like play football and get my jeans grassy and all that stuff. I did that and boxed a little bit here and there. But I was doing stuff with girls too. It's kind of dependent on the day, like whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Um. Okay. Number five, a strong preference for playmates of the other gender. Pretty much, a child with gender dysphoria is gonna want to with play with other people of the opposite gender. Which, like we already established, the whole reason why you and I were playing with girls instead of guys mostly because we grew up around mainly girls. So I
but
feel like this is kind of it's painting people with a broad brush because if you're as a young boy you're gonna hang out with who the majority of people you see in your neighborhood. It's not like you're gonna travel across the city to find people that are your same gender to play with them. You're gonna naturally as kids we weren't really allowed to leave our neighborhood, so we're gonna play with the kids that are in our neighborhood, and if most of those kids are girls, then of course as boys we're gonna play with the girls. And like in my case, I'd rather play with the girls because they were around my age, whereas the boys in my neighborhood were like in elementary school when I was in middle school.
Yeah, like some of this stuff kind of reminds me of just a gay male. Like some gay males kind of they hanged out with the girls, when they're younger, and they
Yeah,
still hang out with a lot of girls when they go older and stuff. They hang out with the
yeah,
girls, like a girls' night out, and they take their guy friend and stuff. So I don't
yeah,
know, like some of this stuff kind of reminds me of just like a gay guy, like the guy
yeah,
that's with chicks and doing maybe wear a pearl necklace or something or whatever
yeah,
earrings. But I
yeah.
don't know, but
So number six is in boys assigned gender, a strong rejection of typically masculine toys, games, and activities, and a strong avoidance for rough and tumble play, or in girls assigned gender, a strong rejection of typically feminine toys, games, and activities. Okay, again, I knew girls that didn't want to play with feminine toys or do feminine activities, but back then, I just thought of them as tomboys. I would never assume they were like wanting to be boys. And about like boys not wanting to play like rough and tumble kind of activities. I didn't like playing rough and tumble type activities. Like I never liked playing sports, but I would never have said that. Oh, I don't like playing rough and tumble activities because I was born a girl, but I was trapped in a boy's body. I would have never said that. That's just
what age did you get into pro wrestling?
what age did I get into pro
Yeah,
wrestling? Probably sixth or seventh grade.
so you're probably like 12 or 13.
Yeah, no,
Um,
11. I think I was 11 or 12.
okay, you didn't have other male friends to practice moves on and like pretend to be wrestlers or anything like that, and even
Well, so I had one friend that he's the guy that introduced me into wrestling, and like me and him would sometimes do fake wrestling, but
there you go.
like he lived like two neighborhoods away from me. So I didn't really get to see him that much. Like I mainly hung out with the kids in my neighborhood, but he would sometimes come into our neighborhood, and then I played with him, but it didn't happen all the time.
Right.
Uh, and then let's see, number seven, a strong dislike of one's sexual anatomy. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. But I never had a strong dislike of my member. Like I, I I don't know what to really say about that.
Yeah, that's like one of the ones I least relate to.
Exactly, exactly. Oh, so then number eight, a strong desire for the primary and or secondary sex characteristics that matches one's experienced gender. So basically, they have a strong desire for their sex characteristics to match up with what they look like. So basically, if they're a boy but they think they're a girl, they want their body, their physical characteristics to match what they think they are. They want to. If they're a girl in the inside, they want their body to look like a girl.
Well, be that as it may, it doesn't work that way.
I know exactly. God made male and female, and
Yeah.
God isn't the author of confusion. All right, so that was gender dysphoria in children. Now, moving on to gender dysphoria in adolescents and adults. So it says a marked incongruence between one's experienced expressed gender and assigned gender of at least 6 months duration as manifest by at least two of the following. So basically, somebody an adolescent or an adult who's experiencing gender dysphoria, again, they're going to think they're the opposite gender of what they were born as, and they're gonna feel that way up to 6 months. And for adults and adolescents, they just need to meet two or more of these criteria. So the children, they have to meet four or more of their characteristics. For adolescents and adults, they just need to meet two or more of of these criteria. And hold on,
Don't
this
you
is
think? Don't you think two is a little bit loose?
I
I
know,
think
I agree.
that's. I think they should fit more than just two.
Yeah, I agree. Writer Mrs. Sarche says all of these symptoms sound like bunk, and a child who hates their body was most likely traumatized and will get over it if the trauma is addressed. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
It is bunk. These characteristics are bunk. I agree with that. Okay. So number one, the first criteria is a marked incongruence between one's experienced expressed gender and primary and or secondary sex characteristics, or in young adolescents that anticipate secondary. So basically, again, they want their they want their feeling of being an opposite gender. They want it to match what or they want what they look like to match with how they're feeling. Number so basically they want people to kowtow to how they're feeling. They don't want to live in reality. They rather have people acknowledge their delusion, which honestly I think is kind of ridiculous because you and me both have schizophrenia and bipolar. And if we
Hmm.
ever had a manic episode where we thought we were the president of the United States, we we wouldn't expect the people in our country to start treating us like we're the president. Like, so why is it that people with gender dysphoria expect us to acknowledge their delusion?
Well, it's all part of that identification thing. It's like
Yeah,
I don't have a car. I get my clothes at Goodwill, and I can identify as the most wealthiest man in the world, but I don't expect anybody to buy it, and I'm not going to call them a bigot
exactly,
for not buying into it.
exactly. All right, the number two is a strong desire to be rid of one's primary and or secondary sex characteristics because of a marked incongruence with one's experience slash expressed gender, or in young adolescents, a desire to prevent the development of the anticipated secondary sex. So basically, this is where it comes. This is where it gets controversial. Basically, per adolescent or an adult that wants to be the opposite sex, they want to have certain body parts of theirs removed so they can look more like the opposite sex.
Hey, I just checked our live feed, and apparently I'm not moving on the live feed. I'm stuck just like on the screen.
Well, I mean, it's too late now. There's nothing we
Yeah,
can do about it. But
I,
yeah,
I had I had to check though, but yeah,
yeah,
that's kind of weird. But sorry,
yeah,
folks.
yeah. But yeah, so basically, like I said, like according to this second criteria, someone with gender dysphoria, this is where this is where it comes in. They want their certain body parts removed so they can look like the opposite sex that they're feeling like they are.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Feelings matter, I guess, but
Yeah,
not facts. So
they're not facts. Yeah, as Ben Shapiro likes to say, facts don't care about your feelings.
yeah, that
Um,
goes with everybody, including Ben himself.
so number
Like this
three,
game.
So number three, a strong desire for the primary and or secondary sex characteristics, a strong desire for the primary and or sex characteristics of the other gen. Oh, basically, so an adult or adolescent with gender dysphoria has a strong desire to have body parts of the opposite sex.
Yeah. There's quite a number of what is that, six or seven you've listed now?
Uh, no, that was three.
Oh, how many are there for the adults?
There's six.
And you just have to meet two of them.
Yeah, you just have to meet two of them.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's
Yeah, like
ridiculous.
with my disorder, what it's probably like you have to meet five things or something.
Yeah, you have to
It's
meet
so
five or
low.
more. Yeah,
Why is it so low with this one?
yeah. No, this actually not reading this now. It makes sense to me why like gender dysphoria is so big in this country because if you just have to meet two or more of these criteria, then pretty much you can label anybody with gender dysphoria.
Yeah, yeah. They like some of the symptoms just seem like a gay man to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So number four is a strong desire to be of the other gender or some alternative gender different from one's assigned gender. So basically, you have a strong desire to be the opposite sex.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Well.
like, like even when I was quote unquote bisexual, like I didn't have a desire to be a girl. I knew I was
Yeah.
a man. I just like so
Well, I guess that's the main distinction between a gay man and a trans person. They just don't do that. I guess.
exactly, yeah. So number five, a strong desire to be treated as the other gender, or some alternative gender different from one's assigned gender. So basically, someone with gender dysphoria wants to be treated like they're the opposite gender. So it kind of reminds me of I heard this story like a couple years ago with Alba and Preach. They were talking about this woman who got a sex change to become a man, and then 6 months later she made a video where she was crying, saying, "Oh, people don't take me seriously anymore. They don't hold the door open for me anymore. Like, I hate being a man."
Yeah. Well, you should have realized that women are the fair sex. That we don't just say that for no reason. You guys are better looking than us, so therefore people pay attention to you more when you talk. When guys like have like a tragedy or have some kind of problem, or people really don't care that much. Like guys don't care because we got our own problems, and women have their own problems, and the guys just get kind of thrown under the bus. So just learn the hard
Exactly.
way. That's just how it is for guys.
Exactly. And finally, number six, it says a strong conviction that one has the typical feelings and reactions of the other gender, or some alternative gender different from one's assigned gender. So basically, someone with gender dysphoria is going to have strong feelings and reactions that are typical of the opposite gender. So if they're a man, they're going to have feelings and reactions of a woman, and if they're a woman, they're going to have feelings and reactions of a man.
Well,
Which that's very, to be
that
honest, that's very vague. Because honestly, someone could look at me and say, "Oh, you're very emotional. You're like a chick," like. So it's kind of it's no. And when if someone said that to me, I'm like, no, I just have extreme moods. Like when I feel stuff to the extreme. I don't when I'm happy, I'm not just happy. I'm ecstatic.
you know,
And when I'm sad, I'm not just sad. I'm depressed. It has nothing to do with, oh, I'm a woman on the inside.
when I think of a trans woman in this description, it kind of doesn't really work out because sometimes when you quote unquote misgender these trans people or the
Yeah,
women in particular, uh, they show really how masculine they can be, so to speak.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like it's kind of like when like that video we reviewed a couple months ago about that woman that was being harassed by that trans man.
Mm,
No, it was a trans woman. And
yeah.
like, it's like he was harassing her, and then also and he kept on telling her call him ma'am. And when she finally did call him ma'am, he was like, "Oh, I'm not man no more. It's sir now." It's like, well, you just
Yeah, and
switched
then
up.
it's like now he's like saying I'm about to beat up a woman as a man, and it's like why did he get
Exactly.
away with this stuff, man? It's ridiculous.
That's the political climate we live in, bro.
Well, I guess not anymore, but it
Yeah,
was for 4 years.
yeah, for yeah. Hopefully things start to get better.
Well, Pride Month is gone, at least that.
Yeah, praise God for that. Pride Month is over with. Thank God for that. All right, so now we're gonna go into the videos. We're gonna review your video that you picked out first, because
Okay.
your video is the shortest. So,
Yeah, I couldn't find too many ones that were void of politics, and that's what I was trying to do. But
all right, can you see it?
yeah, I could see her.
All
And my stinging sting too.
right, all right.
Use of
Can
transgender
you hear it?
Yeah.
pronouns. Part of why I did it was that it was a bad habit from being a gay rights activist.
Yeah.
Okay. But I rationalized it by saying if I can meet people where they are and just kind of respect their fictional self,
Yeah.
I can at least have a second conversation and a third conversation. When you use someone's pronouns or a name or encourage them to cross-dress, that is social transitioning. That really muddies the water.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like that's why I refuse. Like if I see a man, he tries to tell me to call him a woman, I'm gonna refuse that every single time. I'm not gonna call a man a woman, and I'm not gonna call a woman a man, because that does muddy the waters.
You know, like I try to find a compromise with that. Like, if I know their name, I will call them by their name. Like
Yeah.
if it's a trans woman named Jenny, I'll like, hey Jenny, how you doing, sir? Just kidding, I'm just joking. But I'll say, hey Jenny, how you doing? So I'll do
Yeah,
that.
that's actually a good idea. So you don't like offend anyone, but
Yeah.
All the other comorbidities that they might have had that would lead them to this disorder in the first place.
Yeah.
And so I make a distinction between the medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria and the social contagion
Yes.
of transgenderism. The people who are leading the conversation in being rational human beings who know what a logical equivalency is and isn't, and don't want to be hoodwinked by idiots, all of those people are unbelievers.
Right.
And what you have in broad evangelicalism are the Preston Sprinkles waving the flag of, here's my, trans asterisk, Christian who shows me the better way. And you're like, no, this is not only a violation of the ninth commandment, it is hating your neighbor. It is putting them in a dangerous place. Gender dysphoria its medical analog is anorexia. No one affirms your 14-year-old daughter's anorexic self-delusion.
That's actually
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like I agree with that. Like if someone's anorexic, we're gonna automatically know that they're delusional. But like somebody who thinks of the opposite sex, people are like, oh well, that's reality. It's someone who thinks of the opposite sex is just as delusional as an anorexic person.
Just imagine someone with anorexia going like, oh, I'm like they're 5'5" and they're like 75 pounds, and they look themselves in the mirror like, oh man, I'm fat, I need to get skinnier. And then someone goes like, hey, yeah, you're right, you need to get skinnier.
That would actually be unloving. And if someone, like she just said, if someone said that to her, that's actually very hateful. So in the same way, for us to say a man is a woman, that's us hating them.
Yeah, true. I agree.
Are really fat.
Yeah,
You don't say that to
nobody thinks that a sticker in a parade will solve her problems.
Right.
And so we have been hoodwinked, we in the evangelical church, to instead of leading the world and helping people be victorious and be emancipated from the world, the flesh, and the devil, as transgenderism and homosexuality are. Instead, we somehow think that making the church more gay and trans is going to help people out, and that's nuts. And so, but I wanted to mark it as repentance. So the Ref 21.
What?
I guess it depends on the church, because you're a Presbyterian, I'm a Baptist, and I don't see those two particular denominations doing that. All I see is the Methodists doing that.
Yeah, well, there is a branch of Presbyterians. It's called the PCUSA. The PCUSA has gone straight apostate, though.
Oh,
like
really?
Presbyterian churches don't acknowledge them because they've gone straight apostate. But there's even Baptist church that also, like, there's a Baptist church in Florida. I forgot what it was. It was like in Orlando, Florida. That was part of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Really?
And the Southern Baptist Convention had to kick them out because that church went straight apostate too.
See, that's the thing, though. Some churches do go along with this stuff, but I think the way she was implying, like the majority of us are doing this stuff, I don't see that really.
Yeah, I don't see that either.
An article, like the book, marks it as repentance, not just I've learned.
Not just I've learned.
I'm
That's
enlightened. Right. That's cheap.
Yeah.
It's really, it does not give glory to God.
And they're not mutually exclusive. You can say, I learned,
Right.
that I was in sin, the way I
Right.
was thinking and talking about these things. And if you're a good leader and you have your people's trust,
Right.
when you say those things, all that's going to do is earn more trust.
That's true. Yeah, like if you're someone who struggles with anything, if you come to your people and you say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you pray for me?" That's actually going to go a long ways in earning someone's trust. That's something I try and do on this channel, is to be completely transparent with people, so that people can see that there's hope in Christ, and also so that people will trust me because they can see that I am a fallen human being just like they are.
Yeah, like I hate to say this, but a lot of us Christians that are like prominent and they had a pampered life, and they're as a
Yeah,
result they're kind of a square, but me and you have went through real stuff, and like so we can relate
yeah,
to people who've been through hard times and doing the
exactly.
gutter and hell and back, so
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas when you withhold and you play kind of fast and loose, people can smell that. People can, I think, maybe not the broad masses,
Yeah,
but a lot of people can.
And I would say, who cares?
Well,
If it's right, like what happened to Achan?
yeah, right. Yeah.
Joshua came and said, "Give glory to God," and the death sentence had already been proclaimed. And then he repented and gave glory to God, and he
Come what
was
may. Yeah.
executed. Right. So I don't know, and I think we just have to get right back to the fact that you do it because it's obedience.
Yes. That was actually a good video.
yeah. It took me a while to find a good video on the subject that was Christian like.
What did you think about what she was saying?
Yeah, I agree with her, but
Yeah.
the only thing I had an issue with what she said is I don't think the church buys into it like the secular world does. I mean, some of us
Yeah.
so-called
I think
Christians.
I think most churches of America see it as fallacious.
Yeah.
That's why people think Christians are hateful, because we won't fall for it.
Yeah, right. Like we're like the country for a while was going left and left and left, and the church was staying solid as a rock, and we weren't going
Yeah.
along with this stuff, and like we're protest. I know a lot of us were silent during the whole time, but I was
Yeah.
protesting the whole time with this stuff because it was really
Yeah.
offensive to me. Like I just thought like. What if I had a cousin or my wife or something that got locked up in a prison? They had to spend the night with the guy suffering from gender dysphoria because of these new laws and stuff.
Yeah.
That's just not what is supposed to happen.
Exactly. All right, so the next video, I'm gonna go back and forth, but like the next video I want us to cover, it says how to spot the 7 traits of paranoid personality disorder.
Right.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
The first step in finding the right treatment is ensuring the right diagnosis. In this session, Dr. Romani walks through the key 7 symptoms used to diagnose paranoid personality disorder. Dr. Romani, for our members who don't know, what is the DSM?
The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and we're in the 5th edition. It's published by the American Psychiatric Association, and basically it's a list of nearly 200 separate mental disorders and all of the symptoms and the criteria a person needs to meet in order to receive that diagnosis. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. And in fact, the other manual that's used.
I like how she actually admits that the DSM-5 is not perfect, because I feel like a lot of psychiatrists tend to hold the DSM-5 as if it's completely inerrant. But the thing is, the DSM-5 does have errors in it, and it's not a perfect book.
Right. Yeah. There's only one.
There's a reason why they have to come out with so many revisions of the DSM.
Yeah. So
diagnose mental illness is called the International Classification of Diseases. Right. We're in version 10, and that book is put out by the World Health Organization.
Do you have a preference?
Who?
The ICD-10 is what we're required to use to generate diagnoses for clients' billing. So that's what the insurers use, interestingly. The diagnostic criteria, pretty much, at least for mental illness, pretty well mirror between the two manuals. There can sometimes be a few little tweaks. They'll categorize the subcategories a little bit differently, but the DSM still seems to be what is used, and it can be its own episode on the amount of controversy about the DSM and how we use it. And to me, it's a guide. It's a rubric. It's not perfect. We should always get as much data as we can on a client and understand that all of our diagnoses are always hypotheses, and hypotheses that can be revised based on getting more data. So I think we get so caught up in labels that you have borderline personality. You might spend more time and say, this is post-traumatic stress disorder. Like what? And it almost doesn't matter except for treatment. If there's something that's better suited to PTSD than borderline personality, you should be using that treatment.
Right.
So I think it's very much about what is happening. For example, I've run into this where we think a person has major depressive disorder, but it turns out they have narcissistic personality, and they're very dejected because life isn't going the way they want. So they're getting antidepressants and they're getting cognitive behavioral therapy, and nothing.
It's interesting that she says that, because like I haven't been like retested in a long time.
Yeah.
It's like she's talking like, do you need a lot of money to get kind of this kind of help to where they really zero in on you? And because like, we kind of have to help us based on our
actually, every time you see your psychiatrist and you tell them how you're doing, they're evaluating you on the spot right then and there.
So if I bring up something that's bothering me, it's possible I can get re-diagnosed right there.
Yes, because the psychiatrist would be able to tell.
Okay. All right.
Right. And so you see what I'm saying? So it's not meant to be a value judgment. It's really meant to drive treatment in the most accurate way possible. That's
why it's important for those of us who struggle with mental illness to keep seeing their psychiatrist, because that way, if anything's off, they'll be able to notice it and give you the proper diagnosis.
Yeah, be upfront and honest and talk about everything that's going on in your life.
Exactly.
Good treatments for every mental illness. We have them for many, but not all.
Right. So the DSM lays out 7 criteria for PPD. Let's go through them one by one. What's the first one?
So to start with, always remember that the overarching theme of paranoid personality disorder, as laid out in the DSM, is that the person has a pervasive pattern of suspiciousness, of mistrust, and hypersensitivity. That's the overall sort of rubric. When we think about the diagnosis more specifically, then there's these 7 criteria. The first criteria is that they suspect, with no real basis, that other people are harming them or deceiving them. So that they think people are doing things that are causing them problems or costing them money or doing them, causing them harm in public.
Honestly, sometimes I think about myself. I think I'm sometimes too trusting of people. Like I could probably do good if I had a little bit of like suspicion about people. But I don't really suspect people to be malicious towards me. I tend to be very trusting of people.
Yeah, and the thing about that, people can sniff that like shark like blood and
exactly, yeah, that's true.
So that's why you gotta be careful out there who you talk to. But
exactly,
yeah.
Lying to them in some ways, but there's really no substantiation for this. It's just a suspicion they have.
Okay. What about number 2?
The second is that they're preoccupied about the loyalty of their friends and their associates. So they believe, they really are constantly testing people for their loyalty. They think that people aren't loyal.
You know what this reminds me? I remember like when I was younger, I was like very concerned with what people thought about me. Like I was like obsessive about that. Like I remember I used to go up to people that I knew and I would say things like, "Hey, if I ask you something, can you please answer me honestly?" And they would be like, "Yeah, sure, what's up?" And I'll always ask them, "Do you think I'm slow or retarded or something?"
Yeah.
And I'll do that all the time. Like I was so insecure and obsessive that I would do that.
Oh, I can only imagine if I would have said that in front of my friends. They'd be like, "Damn right you are."
Yeah.
Well, that if something better comes along, they'll just turn on a dime. They'll leave them. They will. Now, it's not like abandonment, but
Yes,
it's
that
more
sounds
like
like borderline to me.
no. They won't be loyal to them. That they won't keep their secrets. That they won't stand behind this business no matter what. They won't stand behind their friendship no matter what. And so they're like, who else are you spending time with? Who else are you talking with? You know, so there's always, it's this obsession with loyalty. People who work in these situations with maybe a boss or someone like that who has paranoid personality, their boss will always be keeping very close tabs on people, making sure they're not going off to take another job. And people in those situations are trying to find other
Another
jobs to get out of the situation.
What?
Another job? How can they track that? Oh, like during the time they're at the job, they make sure they're not looking for a job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I thought they were like. I was like, man, are they really that paranoid? Where like they track them when they're off, the clock, and like say make sure they're not looking for another job or something. That's funny, but okay.
I know.
Often have to do it under tremendous secrecy because there's such an over focus on loyalty. And even the word loyalty is sort of not a good word here, because what the person with paranoid personality disorder thinks is loyalty is almost like this absolutely blind, unquestioning devotion, which is actually not a very healthy state for anyone to be in.
I could kind of relate to that, because like when I was in relationships with girls, like when I was dating women, like I mean, this could have just been my separation anxiety, but I was always paranoid that the girl I was with was cheating on me. Like I would want to be around her 24/7, or either be around her 24/7 or be on the phone with her 24/7, because I wanted to make sure she wasn't cheating on me.
Yeah, that kind of tends to sour the grapes, and do stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Going to get a letter of recommendation from a boss with PPD.
You would get a letter of recommendation from that boss or supervisor if they had no more use for you. You see what I'm saying? And if they felt that what you were going on to do was consistent with their rubric of loyalty. Let's say you're a teacher. Their students graduating. They have to go get a job. They're not going to stay student forever. But there have been people, I can say this from being in academia, who will keep their best performing scholars at the postdoctoral level around and really kind of almost clip their career because they want their talent around. And when that poor postdoc after 6 years says, yeah, I want to go and get my own independent career, their paranoid mentor will view it as not being loyal.
I'm just fascinated by this. Does the paranoid mentor know they have paranoid personality disorder?
This is one of those disorders
so
where
educated.
anyone would own it. Doesn't matter. No. Mental health professionals can have a whole spate of mental illnesses and actually not be aware of it. Absolutely, yeah. No. This is a very low insight. Pattern.
What the heck?
Well, I actually prefer my psychiatrist and therapist to have mental illness.
Really?
Okay, so that was number 2. Number 3.
They're reluctant to ever confide in other people because they believe.
Well, how would you know if your therapist or psychiatrist had a mental illness? Would you ask them up front?
Well, yeah, like sometimes I'll bring up a situation and they'll be like, "Oh, I can relate to that because I have such and such."
Oh, really?
Doesn't have to be the very same thing, but sometimes.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Will be used against them, and it is for this reason that it's almost impossible to engage these folks in therapy,
right?
Because they're not going to confide in the therapist,
right?
Because they're convinced that this is going to be used against them. They won't confide in anyone because they believe that because.
Well, that's actually why I really like going to this mental health place I go to called the Thomas Warner Center. I really like going there because all the staff members there have mental illness, and like when I go to the bipolar support group or the schizophrenia support group, I feel like I'm around people who understand me.
Yeah, I was thinking about on my channel doing a review on different mental illnesses in my city. Not mental illnesses, mental clinics in my city, because I've been to about 3 of them, and I wanted to see if I can go to all of them and try to check them all out and, give them reviews and stuff, because I've been to some bad ones and some good ones. So seeing
How many mental health clinics is in your city?
I would say about 5 or 6 at the most.
Oh wow, yeah, you could start a whole series on that.
Yeah.
The person with paranoid personality accumulates grievances. They have vaults and vaults full of grievances that they're constantly pulling out and saying, "See, you tried to get me before. You broke my trust before." They're constantly, pushing back on what they think is people letting them down. So they won't confide in people because they believe someone will use that against them because they do the same thing to other people.
Right. Number 4.
They tend to read hidden meaning and sort of threatening meaning in messages and communication from other people. So never, ever, ever, ever text a person who has paranoid personality disorder.
What?
Oh, sorry, I was talking to my cat.
Oh.
Because even a period in the wrong place in that text, or a word used the wrong way, or a misplaced capitalization, they're going to say, "Wasn't this important to you?" And it'll literally be because you're just knocking the text off.
Okay, so
Yeah, that's actually why I really don't like texting. Like, I have a good friend of mine that prefers texting because he's always so busy. But, like, if I can help it, I'd rather either talk in person or talk on the phone, because I really don't like texting, because it's so easy to misconstrue what someone is saying to a text message.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a millennial, but still, I don't know if I'm too old to understand this, but I never got why people would text with their voice when they can just call the person.
Yeah. Well, my friend that does texting, he does text with his voice, because when he's texting me, he's at work or he's at the gym, and he can't really stop what he's doing to type
Okay.
out. Yeah.
All right.
producer of these series, for months I would text her and I would ask her, a question, and she would respond with "sure," and there was no period, no exclamation mark, no, and it was "sure." It wasn't "yes" or
Okay.
"of course." So finally, I just approached her. I said, "Hey, I'm sure I'm reading into this, but is your "sure" like "sure, I'll get to it, I'm irritated with you," or is it "sure, of course"? Because I just need to know. She goes, "Oh, it's just a yes," and I go, "Okay, great." So I had that.
Right.
Yeah, I can relate to actually. Again, that's why I hate texting, because I get like that. Like, if I ask a question and someone just texts back one word, I start to think, well, why is this person just sending me one word? And that's when I start to I start to think they're mad at me. So then I ask them, hey, are you mad at me? And then they always say, no, I'm not. But if I type a text message and someone just responds with one word, it starts to make me paranoid. I start to think, did I say something that made them mad? What's going on?
Yeah, there has been a couple times where I just didn't check my messages for a day or two, and then I'll see are you mad at me, bro? And I'm like, no, I just haven't just checked my messages in a while or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm not mad at you.
With one person.
At work.
At work.
Where you cared about something.
And I confronted her about it in a respectful way.
But it's not every single message. But the hidden and demeaning message could be in an email. It could be in a thank you note.
Yeah.
It could be the absence of the thank you note.
In a thank you note.
It could be in a text. It could be in how you speak to them. It could be, hey, give me a second, and you're actually, and how come? Am I not valuable? Why I can't believe you couldn't even talk to me. I worked so hard. I drove all the way here, and it's just this. It's a hypersensitivity. Mm-hmm. So you could imagine, no matter how many emojis, you could be James Joyce with your texting. You're still going to
I don't. What's a James Joyce with your text?
Oh, James Joyce, the greatest writer of English literature. You really, seriously, you could be Hemingway, you could be Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Perfect writer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoa.
How about Paul the Apostle? He was
It's not going to be right.
Paul the Apostle, yeah.
It's not about how you write it, it's how they interpret it, and they read these hidden meanings in
And they're looking
to
for
everything, and they're looking for them.
Yeah.
And they're looking for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about number 5?
They're very unforgiving, and they persistently bear grudges. If you do end up on the wrong side of them, that they really do think that you're out to get them, or maybe you did write that message with the wrong language, or you did say something accusatory, God forbid it was actually blatant, they will never forgive you. Never.
So if I go to somebody who does have paranoid personality disorder and said, you are acting out of control, you are making people feel uncomfortable, and you're really lowering the quality of work around here, I am now on their list forever.
You are not only on their list, you're probably on their hit list. I wouldn't be surprised if they went to HR about
Man,
you.
people with paranoid personality disorders sound like they're part of the mafia.
Well, yeah. Well, there was this one guy who had paranoid personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, and he pretended. Well, he had stories that he was in the mafia, but he really wasn't. But he still was like a psychopathic.
You talk about Iceman?
Yeah, exactly. Like
if you got like
I even though I have paranoid schizophrenia, like I don't think I'm too hard to forgive anybody. Like I'll forgive anybody. So like, even if my mom is listening to this message right now, if you want to get family therapy set up, we could do that, and then we could set things up from there. But other than that, so that's why, like, that's my forgiveness for you. We can still work things out if we can set up family therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
So
registered letters from attorneys. I mean, they go big.
Whoa.
They go big. These grudges are huge. It will be the kind of thing where they will never go to a family wedding again. I was recently talking with someone, and I think someone didn't get seated at the right table at a wedding. That was grounds for divorce. It wasn't her wedding.
Divorce?
Like, I'm not going to be married to you anymore.
What?
Yeah, they seem
You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's I'm starting to think that personality flaws are worse than chemical imbalances.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I can't. Well, maybe it's because I have the Holy Spirit, but
yeah,
forgiveness is not an issue with me. I
agree. I'm like that too. Like I was saying earlier, I tend to be a very forgiving man.
So
I don't really hold grudges.
Like that's why I said what I said earlier. I don't want to completely shun out my parents. So if they somehow set up a family session for all three of us to go to, we can resolve things. Yeah. That way we can all get turns, and we have a therapist, mediator there. Yeah. Then we can maybe do something. But like, as far as other than that, I can't. I've given second chances. I've tried to forgive and forget, but it just never stopped. So
I get it. All right, can you see the next video?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to cut this. This is the second gender dysphoria.
Oh, that's a woman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Psychologist
Can you hear it?
Specializing in transgender care. Yeah. Welcome to my channel. If you are new or regular viewer but have not yet subscribed, I would really appreciate if you do subscribe. It helps me with my channel, and it also helps others find the content. If you don't yet follow me on Instagram, link is below.
I thought this video would be interesting because, like it says, the title of the video is "What Does Gender Dysphoria Feel Like?" I thought it was interesting because it seems like when I was reading the DSM-5, it seems like a lot of the criteria for gender dysphoria is all about how do you feel. Like people that push this gender dysphoria crap, it's all about your feelings. And it's like, so I was thinking this video will give us a good inside look of what someone who deals with gender dysphoria is actually feeling. Like, again, I want to say your feelings do not dictate reality. I may feel like I'm a bird, but if I jump off a building, reality is I'm going to go splat. I'm not going to fly.
This might be just a hunch, but I think this particular woman is suffering from DRZ or maybe PhD. I don't know.
All right.
Please do also follow me on Instagram so that way we can connect as well. Having said that, for today's video, I am going to try to describe what does dysphoria feel like. A lot of people ask me this question because I think a lot of people want to pinpoint whether what they're experiencing is truly gender dysphoria. But it's in reality, it's not that black and white. In reality, it's not a matter of just checking.
What did you say?
Of course not.
I know. They always want to play in nuance.
Yeah.
Enough boxes, a lot of things going into figuring out if you do have gender dysphoria. So I'm going to try my best to share with you over the years how I came to understand the presentation of gender. What does it feel like? We're going to tap into feeling specifically from my 20 years working with individuals and people describing and sharing that with me. And I'm going to break it down into severe gender dysphoria, moderate gender dysphoria, and very mild to almost non-existent gender dysphoria, because all of those also carry a set of feelings. So to start off, let's talk about severe gender dysphoria. What does it feel like if an individual feels severe gender dysphoria? This one is by far perhaps the easiest one to describe, to pinpoint, and probably the one where if some of the things resonate, there is a very high probability that you do have gender dysphoria. And the reason why it's the easiest one to pinpoint because the severity is so high. For starters, a very severe gender dysphoria, and by the way, we're talking about gender dysphoria that has a root issue stemming from gender identity. Gender dysphoria for individuals who feel it severe are going to have a very visceral feeling. It's going to be a very present, a very like when you have a toothache, you really feel it. You know you have.
So basically, she's saying someone with gender dysphoria is going to have a very severe feeling that they're the opposite sex. Sort of, she compares that to someone having a toothache. I don't know. I've had toothaches before. And like toothaches are extremely painful. Like I don't imagine someone who I don't imagine a guy who thinks he's a woman is gonna experience extreme pain, like physical pain, like a toothache.
Yeah.
And even if he does feel extreme pain, that does not in any way mean that his delusion is true.
Yeah, because the toothache indicates something really is going on.
Exactly, yeah.
A toothache, when you have a migraine, you feel it, you know you have migraine. Severe dysphoria, for all of you watching who struggle with severe dysphoria, my heart goes out to all of you because it is like that and you know it. It's a goddamn nagging, painful feeling. And the feeling revolves around viscerally, strongly around physicality. Severe dysphoria is very much triggered first and foremost by physical gender dysphoria. For that reason, it's very anchored and very tied to the body. You may feel very strong disconnection with your body. You may feel very strong. And the reason why you feel disconnection is because you don't relate, you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel congruent with the way your body is being gendered.
You don't feel comfortable. Well, you know what? I don't feel comfortable sitting down on my butt all the time, but that doesn't mean that now I can be an airplane pilot. I
don't know. She had kind of a bad analogy.
I know, exactly.
Wake up every single day and feel as if you are wearing a bodysuit. Literally, you feel like you're wearing a mask. You feel like you are, the dogmatic old way trapped in the wrong body.
What?
You gotta wear a mask. You don't want to catch COVID.
Well, that definitely can apply to some individuals who have severe dysphoria. You can literally feel like you are trapped. Your soul, your spirit, your authenticity is trapped in a body that doesn't resonate with you. So there's going to be a very visceral, first and foremost, relationship to the physical realm. It may be not an overall whole body. It could be an element of physical attributes. It could be that when you look down at your hands give you a very strong gender dysphoria. It could be that when you every time you use the bathroom and you have to see or touch your genitals, that gives you dysphoria. It could be when you speak, the voice. It could be when you look at yourself in the mirror. It could be when you look at yourself in the mirror every day you're shaving. It could
Yeah,
be when you look.
I never really like when I was young. I was very conceited because I knew I looked good when I was young. So I can't really relate to this. Like how she's talking about you hate your body and stuff because you think you're like when I was in my 20s, I was very cocky and conceited. Like I remember like I don't know. I just remember I was very cocky and conceited because I knew I was attractive, so I can't really relate to this whole I hate my body type thing.
Well, I can relate to it when I was big, and I remember in 2018 I was really big, and I kind of was looking myself in the mirror, and I was like, I got to do something about this. And then
Yeah,
I manicked, and I kind of got into the best shape in my life as a result. I was even hiking
yeah,
mountains and going to the gym afterwards
yeah,
and stuff, and
yeah.
like you know,
But that's the point though. If you like, that's a good point. If you don't like if you don't like something about your body, the answer is not to get your junk cut off. The answer is to do something to make yourself proud of your body. So if you're mad because you're fat, go to the gym and work out. Get some muscle built up. Or if
yeah,
you're mad because you ate too many cheeseburgers from McDonald's, maybe the best thing for you to do is stop going to McDonald's. But like, if you don't like something about your body, that don't chop your junk off, but instead just do something to make you feel better. Like for instance, I don't like the fact that I'm fat right now. So what I try and do, I go for walks. Like I'm trying to lose weight. I want to quit smoking because I know smoking isn't doing anything good for me. So
yeah.
like the answer, if there's something about your body that you don't like, just make some changes. You don't need to chop your junk off.
Well, I for one, if I went to McDonald's and ordered like double cheeseburgers every day and I got real big as a result, I would sue McDonald's, man. It's their fault.
Yeah, okay.
Look at yourself in the mirror every day you're brushing your hair. It's just that strong visceral sense. Like I said, very akin to you have a toothache, you have a migraine. You just know, you feel it. You feel it. The pain, the tension, the incongruency is there. And you just know, you know, you
It
don't.
really seems like to me, gender dysphoria, from based off of what I read in the DSM-5 and what I'm seeing from like these two videos on gender dysphoria, it's all about how you feel. It's all about your
Yeah,
feelings. There's no like gender dysphoria is not a chemical imbalance. It's not a personality disorder. It literally is just
a
about your
feeling.
feelings.
It's a feeling.
It's,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a feeling.
yeah.
Like that's wild to me.
Well, I don't know. It this is rather bizarre because like the left's approach to this is, oh, they feel this way, so let's affirm their feelings, and that results into a surgery that can really do major damage
Yeah,
if you really think about it.
exactly.
And like, I
Exactly.
guess the rights approach, like if you're conservative or even Christian, you would want to tell them the truth so they can somehow like maybe snap out of it at some point. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel bad for anybody who really does suffer through this, but um, I don't think affirming feelings like this is the way to go. Like that one woman said in the other video, would you affirm a feelings of an anorexic? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's just as devastating.
Yeah.
Know how you know, but deep down, you just know that your gender right now, the gender that you were assigned, is not the gender you're comfortable with. You just feel it. You maybe have felt it all of your life. You maybe have always felt like a sense of not belonging, but there is this very strong.
Oh, that's enough of that one. She just pretty much, she's not saying anything. She's just pretty much saying it's a feeling.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts about that?
The thing is, though, like for a guy growing up in today's society, it's just that, like, men get blamed for a lot of things. Men get, it's kind of like, it's just that, like, being a masculine man nowadays is wrong, and
Yeah.
so it's easy to feel this way by default, because just like growing up in this country, being a left winger is the easy thing to do by default, because all the
Yeah.
celebrities mostly are left wingers, and the teaching at school is pretty left wing and whatnot, and so it's
Yeah,
just that.
there is such thing. There is such thing as an Overton window, which I don't want to really get into the Overton window, but it's pretty much what is becoming more acceptable to talk about in political circles, and the Overton window is always moving towards the left. So
Yeah.
like that's why you'll hear a leftist politician say something completely outrageous, and he says it, and he knows he's not going to get very far with saying it. But by bringing it up in the discussion, he knows that 10, 15 years down the line, it's going to become more prevalent.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah. All right. So the final video, then. The final video. It's the final countdown. All right. So, can you see it?
Med circle.
It says the truth behind paranoid personality disorder.
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can.
You can watch the best parts of this series at
the same guy.
medcircle.com. Paranoid personality disorder, or PPD, actually does not consist of being paranoid in the ways that most people use the term. And its behaviors are often mistaken as symptoms of other conditions like narcissistic personality disorder. This series will debunk the mystery behind PPD and shine a light on the true signs, symptoms, and treatment options. Welcome to the MedCircle original series, Paranoid Personality Disorder, Overcoming Hypersensitivity. You and I have been talking off camera about this topic.
First off, before I get started, I think it does seem like there's a link between paranoid personality disorder and hypersensitivity. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, pretty much.
Paranoid personality disorder. And I am at a loss for words at what this means for the people who have the diagnosis and for the people in the lives of the people with this diagnosis.
Yeah, and the poor insight of this disorder, meaning the person really doesn't reflect on it themselves, it actually really takes an incredible toll on the people around it, because there's a whole lot of, like, you find yourself thinking, what? And yet the person seems to be functioning well enough. So they're going to work, they're going to school, they're doing their thing. So this isn't like a person who's sort of muttering to themselves, in the streets. Like we might think of somebody who's psychotically paranoid.
Yes.
And yet everything that comes out of their mouth is so suspicious. And we'll talk about all this criteria. It's a very perplexing kind of a pattern. And it's one of those patterns in psychiatry and psychology where we don't talk about it a lot, but it's a thing. It really is a thing. It often, though, gets subsumed into other patterns. When we talk in this series, one of the things that's going to be, you're going to see how nuanced it is, Kyle, and our viewers will see that it's this, why isn't this being called narcissistic personality? There's so much overlap. And I have to tell you, as a clinician, when I run into it, I really have to pore over my notes and case records and all of that to really see where that separation is. There's a tremendous amount of overlap. So I think its overlap makes it a really confusing kind of a pattern.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what paranoid personality disorder actually is.
Yeah. So paranoid personality disorder is a pervasive pattern of suspiciousness, distrust of others, don't get involved in intimate relationships, and when they do, they're characterized by suspiciousness. Finally, they're very, very hypersensitive. They think people are looking at them the wrong way. They think people are saying things to them. You know, a person will say something, they'll read hidden
I can relate to
messages
that
into
one.
it. They also tend to do things like
What?
I can relate to that one. I remember one time I was at In-N-Out,
Yeah.
and for some reason I thought everybody was looking at me, and people were
Yeah.
talking behind my back and stuff, and I was miserable just eating my burger. I wanted to leave so bad, you know, like it was.
Yeah, when I was in juvie, and we would go to the cafeteria for meals like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I would always sit off by myself, and I would be paranoid that the other kids were talking about me and laughing at me and stuff. I even had a staff member. I'll never forget him. His name was Felix. And like, it's so weird because he would talk. I remember one incident in particular. He sat at my table with me, and we were talking. And I didn't say nothing about this at all. It was weird. I didn't say nothing about what I was thinking or feeling at all to this guy. And he just randomly said, I bet you're worried that these other kids are talking about you and laughing at you, right? It was so freaking weird. I was like, are you inside my head? How the heck did you know that?
He can probably read body language.
Probably. Yeah, but I wasn't really sitting in it. I was just sitting there eating my breakfast or whatever. I don't know, it was so weird. But then, like, after that day, I never saw him again. Like, I was like, it was so weird. He
You can
was
make
there.
a movie. You can make a movie out of that story.
I know, right? Yeah, he was. Like, after that day, I never seen him after that.
He is the one who told you the truth. I don't know.
hold grudges. They're incredibly unforgiving. And so all of this can make for a really kind of a interpersonally very rigid person that's incredibly difficult to get along with. It's hard for them to get through the world, but somehow many of them do. And if they do have a lot of power or privilege or money or something like that, they will exert that paranoia in the workplace. For example, they will like check everyone's bag when they leave the office to make sure nobody took a pad of Post-its or something like that.
I'm having
Might be the
deja
kind of thing
vu.
you'd see with somebody.
What?
I'm having deja vu.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm gonna fast forward it some more because I want to know what this truth behind paranoid personality disorder is.
For a break from reality. So paranoia, to me, I've always thought of it more as the CIA is monitoring my house, the FBI is downloading my brain. You know, the Mars rover is actually merely
Downloading my brain. That's funny.
Yeah.
I never heard that one. I did
up there, like that kind.
Well, I did date a paranoid schizophrenic girl. It was an ex of mine, and she thought that she was always like thinking there was cameras everywhere and there was cameras in the toilet and stuff, you know.
Wow.
Kind of thing. It's sort of, you know, what we traditionally think of sort of conspiracy theory, flat Earth kind of stuff. That feels more paranoid to me. That there's a break from reality.
On flat Earth.
What?
Don't get David started on flat Earth.
Yeah, flat Earth is the most dumbest theory I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, you have to be literally brain dead to think the Earth is flat.
Yeah.
Usage of the term, it really gets at this idea of everyone's out to get me, but they're able to give a rather well-crafted argument that's really based on a misinterpretation. The person may have given them a look like, but usually it's because it's what the hell are you saying? But it's, you know, they're doing this because it's very much they're confused, but the person with paranoid personality who's receiving that will view that as a slight, will view it as an insult, will view it as a criticism. And so then as a result, they'll start getting very combative with them.
So they're finding proof to prove that their paranoid, you know, assumptions are true.
I think that's beautifully put. They're very confirmatory. They look for confirmatory evidence. There was actually some really interesting.
That actually kind of sounds like confirmation bias. So pretty much, people with paranoid personality disorder, like, they use, it's all about confirmation bias. Where confirmation bias is you have a viewpoint and you only look at the evidence that backs up your viewpoint. You don't look at contradictory evidence. You just, so it kind of sounds to me that people with PPD, they utilize confirmation bias.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. The confirmation bias, doesn't they play kind of stuff like that in the media and whatnot?
What do you mean?
Well, I was thinking of some other kind of bias.
Like liberals only play videos that back up their liberal agenda, and conservatives only play videos that back up.
Yeah, stuff like that, pretty much.
Yeah, that's confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Theoretical writings on this one, because for people, this person, I think they've written about this in the 1950s or 60s, and I can't remember the theoretician's name, but it said there's a real paradox here. They think that everyone's out to get them, and they're not really understood, and yet they're willing to believe any shred of gossip. Does that make sense? Like, they're willing to believe all these weird theories from the outside, but then they also think that no one's telling the truth.
Right.
So
so it's kind of, it's like weird. Like people with paranoid personality disorder, they don't trust they think everybody's out to get them, but at the same time they trust what people say about them.
Yeah, or maybe they may not believe in status quo stuff, but they fringe things they are all for about, and they don't question that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a paradox.
Yeah.
Very confusing, and that's why I think people are very confused by them. And there have been some people who have observed in more severe variants of paranoid personality disorder, they can have moments where their paranoia is severe enough to almost look psychotic.
Yeah. We hear the term in mental health, paranoid schizophrenic.
Yes.
That is not this, though.
That's not this. See, then that's that word paranoid.
Right.
You see, paranoid is a descriptor.
Yes.
So in schizophrenia, when that term is used, it is used because that individual with schizophrenia is perceiving that others in their environment or other institutions in their environment are setting out to do harm to them. Many times that's accompanied by auditory hallucinations where they're hearing voices that are out to get them, as it were. And so they act in accordance with that, which can be very fearful. In some cases, it could actually even be violent. It's a whole range of responses, as you would have if you genuinely, truly believed someone was out to get you, without that sense of threat, though. It's beyond a misinterpretation. But that's why I'm saying that word paranoid is a tricky word. And interestingly, folks like Theodore...
I like how she explains how there's a difference between paranoid personality disorder and paranoid schizophrenia. Because I can see how that will confuse a person that's not familiar with mental health.
Yeah, like someone with paranoid schizophrenia, medication would do them very well, but with paranoid, with PPD, there's no medication.
Not only that, but also someone with paranoid personality disorder, they're not hearing voices and seeing things that aren't there. Someone with paranoid schizophrenia will most likely hear voices and see things that's not there.
Yeah, so it's like the schizophrenic is like it's in their head, and then the paranoid guy is in their head too.
Exactly.
Milan, who's a very famed personality theorist, he actually came back to this idea of paranoid personality and sort of took it apart and broke it down to subtypes, that some people like this are very stubborn, some people like this are very contemptuous, some people like this are more like conspiracy theory types, some people like this are really malignant. They're almost like they're always looking for a fight, so they always see negative motivations in everyone. They almost always have a grimace and an angry...
I think it's interesting, like one of the signs of paranoid personality disorder is the person tends to be very conspiratorial. I don't know thought about
I believe in some conspiracy theories, because I think the New World Order that's gonna emerge is the statue, the statue in the Nebuchadnezzar dream.
Yeah,
I think the New World Order is the feet and the clay on the bottom, and I think that's gonna bring about the Antichrist. I could be wrong, but I don't get like super fearful of this or anything. It's just kind of an interpretation of mine. I don't even say I'm absolute on it. I could be wrong. So
Yeah,
like I let it
exactly.
like control me or anything like that. You know.
Yeah.
Look on their face and you didn't seat me in the right place because you don't like me in the restaurant, you didn't, you cut me off in traffic because you're out to get me. Everyone is viewed through that. They can actually be somewhat dangerous.
Who is most affected by this disorder?
Men are affected more than women. We observe it more in
Wow.
men than women. I've seen it
There's
in women.
more
Certainly.
men with paranoid personality disorder than women. I mean, I guess
I
I
would have
could
figured
see
that. Yeah, I would have figured that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that many. I don't know that many women that are into like flat Earth and like conspiracy
That's
theories.
true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Of a male pattern. There's not a lot of good epidemiologic research on this one. And we know that the rate in the population is probably somewhere between 1% and 2%. It's
Wow.
probably very underdiagnosed.
Right.
And it's also very likely that a lot of these patterns are subsumed in another disorder, narcissistic personality, avoidant personality, a disorder called schizoid personality, or the person may actually be frankly psychotic, in which case we wouldn't diagnose this.
Right, that makes sense. Are there physical health ramifications for someone who has this disorder?
A person who has paranoid personality disorder may be very suspicious of, for example, a healthcare provider. They may seek out multiple other opinions. They may not, they actually may become very arrogant and feel that they know better than a healthcare professional or someone like that. So that kind of suspiciousness can not only make it that it's hard for them to get help, they may not trust help, but it's also really, really hard for them to create a healthy alliance with a healthcare provider, so much so that the healthcare provider may be a bit more alienated from them and maybe just want to give them the bum's rush and get them out of the office, even unconsciously.
Right.
So it can be really difficult for them to engage with healthcare, which can be risky.
Man,
because
I would hate to be a doctor that had to deal with someone with paranoid personality because I think that would be stressful.
Yeah, but
You want your patient to trust you, but at the same time though, no matter what you say to them, they're not going to trust what you say.
yeah. Well, it might be kind of on a spectrum. If you win the person's trust, who knows what could happen?
No, I agree. That's the thing about the DSM-5 is all the mental illnesses listed in that book are pretty much on a spectrum.
Right.
not be getting the guidance that they need, the tests they need, the diagnostic, assessments that they need because they are so suspicious.
So for somebody who's this suspicious and this sensitive and has paranoia at some form, what are the consequences that they face in their life by not being able to live how you and I live?
Well, the consequences there's many. I mean, one is that good luck with a relationship. Because how many times can you accuse someone of cheating on you who's not cheating on you before they're like, I'm out?
Yeah, honestly, I can relate to that. Because I've accused girlfriends in the past of cheating on me, which is kind of ironic because I accused girlfriends that they were cheating on me, but then I had an instance where I was cheating on two different women at once. One was a long distance relationship, and the other one was a local relationship. But I was dating both of them at the same time, and I felt guilty about it, so I confessed it to both of them. And I was thinking they're gonna fight over me, but then they both just dumped me.
You were trying to have that boy is mine scenario going.
Yeah, exactly.
The odds of a successful
Oh,
long-term
10 minutes. Okay, that's enough of that. What did you think about that?
That's cool. Being a paranoid schizophrenic myself, I can relate to it a little bit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call myself a conspiracy theorist because there's a lot of that stuff I don't believe in. I think I question everything. I don't go like I might not believe in CNN, so I'm gonna go on Infowars.com and believe everything.
Yeah.
Alex Jones said. I question everything. So except for the Bible,
Yeah.
I don't question the
Yeah.
Bible.
No, I agree. The Bible is the only book that's actually true and 100% inerrant and 100% infallible and authoritative too.
Right.
All right. Well, I thank you, Joseph, for joining me again for another episode of Real Life with Schizophrenia. If any of y'all have any ideas, any mental disorders you guys want us to cover in the next show, please feel free to message one of us or comment on this video and let us know what you want us to go over. And again, stay tuned for our next episode. It won't be next week. It's going to be the following Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And before we end, I'd just like to make a prayer request out there. Starting the 23rd of this month, I'm going to be starting my next biblical counseling course. So please be in prayer that I can excel at that course. I praise God, I passed my first course, so I'm going to be starting my second course on the 23rd.
Amen.
Joseph, do you have any prayer requests for the viewers?
Yeah, I'm a little bit in debt with Verizon, and I need a job pronto. So keep in prayer. I think I got something lined up, but just keep in prayer that I find something pretty quickly so I can get this done.
Yeah, we could definitely. So pray for the both of us on those two things. All
Amen.
right. Yeah, and if you and please don't forget to like this video, share this video with anyone that you feel like needs to hear the message in this video, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't been subscribed at all yet. And if you've been blessed by the Christ Center Mental Health Ministry, please consider supporting the ministry either through Patreon, Venmo, or Cash App for $5 or more pledges on Patreon, or a one-time donation of $10 or more on Venmo or Cash App. I'll send you a few copies of my books as a token of my gratification. Thank you, everyone, for watching this video. Have a good night and stay strong in the Lord.
Amen. Good night.